if you've watched part 4 and if you have any further issues with him, I want to make this clear that this video is towards people who are supporting me, not towards Curtis's supporters. I'm only saying this to Curtis and to my supporters. I'm making this video because after finishing part 4 and based off of the responses I was getting from people, the way that Curtis is responding to all this is making people lose respect for him. They're talking about how he's exposing himself for who he really is, and I don't know if he's going to give an even pettier response to this. I don't know if he's going to do something that's beyond petty, maybe something malicious, and I don't know if that's going to affect his channel in a way where people just, he was sort of making jokes about being canceled, but depending on the way he responds, it could happen. So I'm making this video because I want us to be on the same page about something. Have you ever done something that you regretted? Have you ever done something where you just weren't behaving exactly the way that you thought that you should? Have you ever done something where you thought that you were in the right and someone was telling you that you weren't and you didn't realize it at the time? And most importantly, have you ever done something where you were called out for it and told that your behavior was wrong in front of thousands of people? There's a completely different dynamic online than there is in real life, where you have to walk this tightrope between how you feel and how you think. This tightrope where, especially when you're garnering support from people of any and every sort of opinion, they all have different ideas of how they want you to behave and different standards that they hold you to. So if you don't behave perfectly, if you don't respond perfectly, you can fall over and they can eat you alive. And that's terrifying. And so it causes people to react in different ways. And I think that it's important for people to remember one thing in all this, which is overcompensation. When it comes to overcompensation, people are going to react in a way to protect themselves from something. In Curtis's case, he keeps talking about how his feelings aren't hurt, but he had no reason to respond. I was dislike bombed. All he had to do was just ignore it. He wanted to respond because his feelings were hurt. And he's not going to admit it, and that's fine. But I'm just making the point that he has to overcompensate so that he can continue to convince himself and his fans that his feelings are not hurt. And they are, and that's okay. And again, you have to factor in walking that tightrope when you're being judged by everyone online. So I was thinking about everything that happened, and while I was editing, it just dawned on me that if he really had that much of a problem, since it didn't benefit him in any way to respond, he could have just contacted me. He could have just told me how it made him feel. But at the same time, it's not that easy because, again, when you have this reputation online, if he were to message me and just say, hey, why'd you make the video the way that you did, or it hurt my feelings, he'd have to be vulnerable to do that. And he doesn't know me. He can't tell how I'd react. He doesn't know if I'd respond to him and be like, oh, you snowflake, which I would never respond to him in that way. But how could he know? So even though it could seem easy for somebody with way more subs than you to contact you and talk to you about something, there's that factor of him saying the wrong thing and it ruining his reputation. And so I was thinking about it and I was just like, we could have been on good terms. It literally could have been something where he could tell me that he didn't like how I did my video. I could explain to him why I didn't like how he did his video. We could have taken down our videos and put up more constructive ones, or we could have corrected ourselves. It literally could have been something where two smaller channels helped each other to improve. But instead, we went into the gutter, and that's where we are now, which brings me to my next point. I'm not going to respond to whatever he says unless, if it's some sort of really, really toxic response, like beyond something I can think of, then I might say something if it's a serious threat to me. But outside of that, if he's just being petty again or something, I don't have anything more to say. I think he has every right to respond to part 4, but I'm just not going to respond to that in a video because it has to end somewhere. So even though I'm making this video, he can still respond to part 4 and he would have a right to do that. But at this point, if he wants me to say anything back to him, he can just contact me. I'm not going to make fun of him or attack him, and I will just assume that he won't do the same thing to me. We can just have a conversation. If he doesn't want to do that, then that's whatever. But that's what I think would be best in this circumstance, because I don't want to drag this out any further. And again, based off of his behavior, if he keeps acting like this, he's just going to jeopardize himself further and further. And that type of stuff, people just lose respect for you when you do that. So the point that I'm making is I just want to tell people to give him a chance. Again, I don't know how he's going to respond. If it's a little petty, then I say still give him a chance to grow and change, because we need time to self-reflect outside of the scope of the pressure of the tightrope and the standards that we're held to by people who aren't dealing with our circumstance. So I'm just saying that it's okay if you don't like the way that he's behaving. I would say you could take a break and go back and see if he changed, because based off of what he said to me in here, I'm just going to take him seriously and assume that, I mean, the fact that he could even admit it means that deep down he knows that he could work on himself in that way, but it's up to him whether or not he does it. The thumbnail, I can feel it now that they're going to think that it's like silly or something, but as you guys know, I'm an artist and thumbnails heavily affect how people react to a video, how they're going to watch it, and sort of the feeling that they get when they click on it. So I'm making this thumbnail as to convey the message that I'm pushing throughout this video, which is empathy. I am genuinely sorry for hurting your feelings, Curtis. At the same time, I do think that it's necessary for your feelings to be hurt, unfortunately, because you need to understand that online is worse than real life and that people have a right to have their feelings hurt by all sorts of things, just like with you right now. Hopefully, you do understand that someday if you don't now. Though I do feel bad about the effect that my words had on you, I still feel like it was necessary at the same time. It is a gray area. If you don't want to accept that apology, you have every right not to, because it's not an ideal apology, but it is a sincere one. And if you want to talk it out, then you can contact me and we can actually have a conversation about it. If you just want to give your response or whatever, then you can do that. I'm just saying that I genuinely do hope that out of all of this, you are a little bit more considerate towards those perspectives of people hurting people's feelings unjustifiably, and that you have every right to be offended by the things that I said. Regardless, I just wanted to do this follow-up because his arguments were just so bad. They were honestly so bad that I was sitting there and I was like, if he doubles down in this way after this, I don't know how people are going to feel about him. But at the same time, I feel like he is, because I think he feels like he has to argue that way to impress his subscriber base. So I just wanted to make this to express that it's not that easy being a YouTuber. It's not that easy being a content creator and being held to this standard where people expect for you to react perfectly and to recognize your flaws in real time. In real life, people need time to self-reflect. So just keep all of that in mind. So I just want to reiterate that people just need time to change, and I think that he's definitely capable of doing what he said. So I'm going to give him that opportunity to do that, and hopefully his response is better than the last one. We'll see. I don't know, but I would prefer to handle the rest of this, any response I have left to give, through him contacting me if he really wants me to say something. And lastly, to all of you, the people who have been supporting me through all this, for one, I appreciate the fact that you guys came over to my video and gave it a chance despite the way that it was depicted in his video. And I got a suggestion from someone saying that they would want to see comments in like shorts or in like short videos. And I was focusing on a lot of those hate comments because they were just literal slander. So maybe I will focus on the positive comments during my little like break from making long videos. I don't know yet, but I have said this since I came back, and I still mean that I do want to incorporate the positive comments more to show you guys my appreciation. You guys have just been sharing all these stories with me, so I might be putting up some comments that came from this whole thing. We'll see. Point is, I appreciate you guys for supporting me. So with all that being said, thank you all for watching. I will see you all next time.